The night was settling over the small western town, its wooden sidewalks lit by the soft glow of lanterns, swinging gently in the evening breeze. The saloon doors creaked as they flapped open, spilling out the rough laughter of cowhands and the sharp scent of whiskey. She walked quickly, clutching her shawl closer around her shoulders, hoping to make it home before the rowdiness turned dangerous. But fate, cruel as ever, had other plans. A man staggered from the saloon, his boots uneven on the boards, his breath thick with drink and his eyes glazed with something mean. He saw her and his steps turned in her direction. She tried to step aside, to slip past quietly, but his hand shot out, rough and heavy, seizing her wrist. "Where you think you're going, sweetheart?" He slurred, pulling her closer, his foul breath hitting her face as she struggled against his grip. Fear clawed at her chest. She twisted, pulling, begging him to let go, but he only laughed, his drunken strength overpowering her. Her heart pounded as his grip grew tighter, dragging her toward the alley, her voice breaking as she cried out for help into the uncaring night. And then, just as hopelessness threatened to swallow her, boots thundered against the boards. A shadow fell between her and her attacker, tall and solid, framed by the lantern glow. A cowboy, broad-shouldered, hat pulled low, eyes blazing with steady fire. Without hesitation, he seized the drunk by the collar and yanked him backward, the sound of tearing fabric splitting the tense air. "That's enough," the cowboy growled, his voice low but sharp as steel. The drunk swung wildly, fists flailing, but the cowboy was stone and storm together. He blocked the blows, landed one hard punch to the man's jaw, and sent him sprawling into the dirt. The drunk groaned, tried to rise, but another cold stare from the cowboy kept him down. Then he turned, his eyes softening as they met hers. She stood trembling, one hand pressed to her chest, tears brimming in her eyes, her breath coming in broken gasps. The cowboy stepped closer, careful not to startle her, his voice gentler now. "You're safe," he said, his hand reaching out, steady and sure. "He won't touch you again." She hesitated, the world still spinning with fear, but when his fingers brushed hers, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: protection, warmth, a promise that someone cared. He guided her away from the street, his arm firm around her shoulders, shielding her from the curious eyes peeking through saloon windows. Together they walked through the quiet lanes, his presence a wall between her and the shadows of the world. She leaned into him without meaning to, her body weary, her soul shaken, yet something in his calm steadiness gave her strength. "Why did you help me?" she whispered after a long silence, her voice fragile as glass. He looked down at her, his jaw set but his eyes kind. "Because no woman deserves to be treated like that. And because—" He paused, searching for the words, then said, "Because someone's got to stand up when wrong is done. Tonight that someone was me." She blinked back tears, realizing she wasn't alone anymore, realizing the stranger with a cowboy's hat and a fighter's spirit had stepped into her storm without hesitation. In that moment, her heart began to believe again, not in miracles, but in goodness, in the strength of people who would fight for what was right. By the time they reached the edge of town, the stars were out, glittering like scattered diamonds across the sky. The cowboy stopped, turning to her with a reassuring smile. "You're safe now," he said again, the words like a balm to her bruised spirit. She wanted to thank him, to tell him how much his courage had saved not just her body but a piece of her soul, yet all she managed was a whisper of gratitude and a tearful smile. He tipped his hat, his eyes lingering with unspoken promise, then walked her the rest of the way, never letting go until she was behind her own door, safe from the night. And as she leaned against the wooden frame, her heart still racing, she knew she'd never forget the man who stepped out of the shadows and pulled her from the cruel hands of danger. Friends, if this story moved your heart, if it made you feel the power of courage, kindness, and love even in the darkest of moments, then I invite you to join this journey with us. Subscribe to the channel, stay with these stories, and together we'll keep breathing life into tales that remind us of hope, strength, and the beauty of finding light when all seems lost.